Words of Hannah Roberts Villeneuve, adapted. We come seeking a community with the power to take our pain and transform it, to take our mourning, our confusion, our anger, our hurting hearts, and transform them all. Not erase them, not carry them for us, not make them small or unimportant, but hold them and change them and love them into something new. We come seeking a community with the power to declare that such transformation is possible, not because of what we all believe about God or Jesus or Easter, but that such transformation is possible because we will meet one another in our pain, our mourning, our confusion, anger, and hurt. We will meet one another there, but we will not leave one another there. There in the places where pain lives, in the places where it's all muddled, in the places where our anger consumes us, in the places where our fear takes hold, we will meet one another there, but not leave one another there. There in those places where we are expecting a heavy stone and the pain of beloved's death, we meet instead the unexpected lightness of the stone that has been rolled away. We meet instead the seeds of possibility in an empty tomb. There in those places, we meet the eternal truth that neither fear, nor death, nor anger, nor heartbreak gets the last word. Even when we are running, scared, uncertain, we meet one another there and declare that joy breaks through and love gets the last word. We meet one another there and we declare, in spite of a world that seems hell-bent on not making it so, that joy breaks through and love gets the last word. We come seeking a community with the power to take our pain and transform it, to take our mourning and hold it, to take our questions and love them into something new. Come, seeking as we are, and let us worship. Welcome to worship with the community of the First Unitarian Church of Omaha. I'm the Reverend Shari Woodbury, the church's settled minister. Whether you are attending online or in person, I'm glad you have chosen to join us on this Easter morning. A special welcome to visitors. This congregation is a community of all ages and abilities. It is a community with a rainbow of gender and sexual identities. It is a community of diverse cultural and class backgrounds. We draw from many sources of inspiration and share common liberal religious values. Whoever you may be, we welcome you to bring your whole self into this community. If you'd like to visit with others after the service, those online can stay on for Zoom breakout groups. Those in the sanctuary are invited to adjourn to the common room in the basement where coffee and tea are available. And by the way, anyone in the sanctuary who wants to share a joy or concern a little bit later in the service, there are some paper forms by each door that you can fill out and give to an usher. Each week we acknowledge that where we meet for worship, as the First Unitarian Church of Omaha, is the land of the Omaha Oto Nations, and that Indigenous people in the greater community have become marginalized and made invisible. May we recognize their presence among us and work with them to resolve issues like poverty, displaced children, and the murdered and missing Indigenous women, the MMIW. At this time, I invite Taylor and Ezra Eamon to come forward to light the chalice here in the sanctuary, and those at home, light your own. Oh, we've got some more helpers. All right. Maybe one of you would like to grab the candle and hold it up for him to light. And while they're doing that, I want to express my gratitude to all of our creative folks with the visual flair who not only beautifully decorated our sanctuary for my installation service a few weeks ago, but took it down and then put it all up again after we had the church painted recently. All right, thanks, kids. You can come back up in just a little bit for the story, but right now, our choir is going to come forward and share for our opening song a piece called The Open Road. You might recognize the text of Walt Whitman, set by John Lewitt. From this hour, I ordain myself loosed of limits and imaginary lines.
Listening to all the
larger, better than I thought. I did not know I held so much goodness. All seems beautiful to me. At this time, I invite the children to come forward for the Time for All Ages. And Christina Strong will join us as well, and Kate Wigg.
There we go. I actually think that Christina is out getting some things set up. So I think you're stuck with me today. Come on down, all the young and young at heart, come on down. I'm excited to see you. Hello. This is a big day, huh? Oh, good. All right, cool. Yay. Hello. Hi, everybody. Come on in. It's good to see everybody. I like this energy. This is going to be good for egg hunting, this energy all over. Good morning. Good morning. Hi. Yes, please join this group. Come on in. Good morning. Well, I haven't been around for a while, so hi, I'm Kate. And Miss Christina is setting some cool stuff up, so she asked me to sneak in to tell a story while she is finishing up. Good morning. I love all these faces. And the best masks, too. Coolest stuff. Well, this morning, the adults are going to be talking about a time that change was hard. Times in our lives when things don't go the way that we wanted them to go, and that it's tough. Has there been at any times in your life that something changed, or you didn't get what you wanted, or it didn't work, and it was hard? Never? Oh, what's a time that things were hard? Or something changed? Yesterday when you were doing what and it didn't go the way you wanted it to? You were building a fort and it didn't go the way that you wanted it to. What happened?
What's your name?
Did it fall down?
Yeah. You are Zach.
It was a bit too... Tootie? Tell me more about that.
Two-dimensional. Oh, 2D.
It was too flat. It was too 2D. Yes, it was not a 3D enough fort.
2D.
Yes, it was too flat of a fort. Were you able eventually to fix it and get inside of it?
I just had to go with the flow.
You just went with the flow. I love that. That's it. That's exactly what we're talking about. Yeah, tell us more, Reagan Lee. In just a second.
There was this one time where I was expecting to be able to do a front flip in the pool, but instead I ripped my head open.
Oh, that is a time that things went really, really sideways. You were trying to do a front flip at the pool, but it did not go well, and you broke your head open?
Oh, I just ripped the skin. That's what broke.
But it just ripped the skin. So did that make you afraid to try front flips again, or did you keep going? Have you done front flips since?
Yeah, I just know not to do it at the YMCA pool.
So you just learned where and when and how to do it, but you're still doing front flips. Yes, I love that resilience.
Or do it in the deep end.
Or do it in the deeper end.
I was in the very deep end. It's just...
This is exactly what we're talking about, the things that don't go quite right and then get fixed. Yeah, tell us more. What's something that got changed for you that you didn't like? You lost a teacher that was very, very, very important to you. That is such a sad time. And have you gotten a new teacher? So you had a teacher that was very important to you who died, and you went to her funeral and you said, it is not just Miss Kelsey here in this body, but everything she taught us stays with us, and she's out there in the world with us. That is an amazing learning. She's still in your heart and in your mind always. Wow, I mean, I'm done. I don't need to go any further. Like, just finished. I don't have to do anything else. Yes.
Well, you didn't raise your hand. You have something you want to say, raise your hand.
Oh, we learned a valuable lesson about going down water slides on rafts with adults that keep the raft from flipping over. Because sometimes older brothers don't help the raft from flipping over. Sometimes that keeps going. I'm going to take 2 more, and then I'm going to finish up our story. But I love all of these ideas. And we learned also how to be safer with our brothers as we go through. Yes, tell us yours. Oh, you made a pillow fort, and it fell down, but that's when you were done? Yeah. So it was actually a great way of cleaning up when you think about it, right? Get it to all come down on top of you. Did you laugh when it fell down, or were you frustrated? Yeah, you were frustrated at first. I understand that too. But then it's kind of a fun way to destroy forts in the future. Oh, I understand the frustration. And plus, if you didn't want your fort to be done yet. And our last one, tell us.
A night when I wanted to go first on an Easter egg hunt, but I didn't. My sister had to go first.
You wanted to go find the Easter eggs first on an Easter egg hunt, but you weren't able to. And your younger sister got to go first?
Yeah. That happened today. That happened today.
This is a very fresh wound, folks. This was a this morning event. Well, actually, that's a great segue, too, because my story is about Easter. And it's about loss and change and finding a way to move forward in the future. It's my favorite Easter story, actually, because it ties up all the loose ends for me. It's about the goddess Ostara from Germany. And she was the goddess of spring. It was her job to bring spring in every year. And one year, she was running late. Ostara. I'm just saying. So she was running late one year, and it was cold way longer than it should have been cold by the time that she got down to earth to bring the spring. And that had a bad consequence. There were some birds that had been trying to get their nests together. And it was time. It was time for them to start putting their nests together. But it was so cold that one of the bird's wings froze, and it was no longer able to fly. And when the goddess came down and realized that it was her fault that the bird's wing was frozen to the side, she felt really, really bad that she had been running late, and she didn't know what she was going to do to try to help this bird. And her magic wasn't going to be able to help the bird fly again. So she had to think of some different solutions, like you folks have thought of. Now, her magic actually comes in the form of rainbows, which is pretty awesome and something I wish I had. She wasn't able to fix the bird's wing, but she was able to fix the bird's form. And using her magic, she was able to transform the bird into another animal, an animal that wouldn't be so vulnerable on the ground, wouldn't get hurt on the ground. Any guesses about what animal Ostara was able to turn the bird into? Oh, there's a lot of guesses. I tell you what, I'm going to count to 3, and you're all going to yell your guesses at the same time. Okay, ready? 1, 2, 3, go.
Lion!
Oh, we have all kinds. I heard lions, which are not vulnerable on the ground. Agreed. But I feel like I missed a couple others as well. What other guesses? Cats? What? A dog? A what? A turtle? Owls?
Owl! A kind of bird that prefers to walk instead of fly.
A walking bird, like an ostrich or a chicken.
Or
No.
a bird that's gonna run super fast. Like
A roadrunner bird. No, it was actually one more guess.
maybe it could have been a billion.
Oh, that's a very specific woodpecker, but it was not a bird at all. It was actually a rabbit. A hare, actually. A hare that was able to move across the land incredibly quickly. She named him Lepus. They became friends. But she didn't want Lepus to forget everything that he was as a bird. She didn't want him to forget his entire heritage. And she gave him a special gift. A gift that he would still be able to lay eggs. 1 time a year. Do you remember what her magic was made of? Rainbows. So what color do you think those eggs were?
White.
Orange, yellow, green, blue, white, violet. All the colors. And so Ostara gave Lepus the opportunity, this very quick-moving bunny who could move all around the world, the opportunity to lay eggs once a year. And he was able to live out the rest of his life. Even though he had had such a hard trauma, he was able to bring joy and have hope and bring the spring with Ostara every year. I wonder if that makes me think of anything. Oh, what?
The Easter Bunny.
The Easter Bunny! It's the one story that has tied up all the loose ends for me all these years. And I believe that perhaps you have some eggs that you can go find now with Miss Christina.
And talk for a minute, but then if you're kindergarten and above, we're going to go outside for the egg hunt. So if you have a coat in this room, this would be a good time to grab it before you come out.
I have loved getting to talk with you. I am going to let you go and find eggs and bring hope. Thank you for spending time with me today.
Where's my Easter basket?
I forgot to bring my basket. All right, well, the kiddos are having fun hunting eggs. We are going to share joys and concerns. Those who are online, you can put it in the Zoom chat or the YouTube comments if you want one to be shared. I have just one that I received already, which is about our organist, Pat Will. She unfortunately is under the weather a bit today, which is why our choir and our wonderful pianist are doing a little extra music for us today. And we send our healing wishes to Pat. Nothing serious, just not a good idea to come and be with others on this particular day. And we have, Serena says, so grateful for our tech people as I recover from strep throat. So Pat's not the only one watching from home while trying to get over a bug. And Joe Schaff is thankful that Lori's mom is all right after a brief healthcare scare last night. We'll send our good healing wishes to Lori's mom. Looks like those are our joys and concerns for today. Any week you can submit them online beforehand, whether you're going to be in town or not. And again, we have paper forms at both doors here in the sanctuary for those who come in person and want to share one. With all of the joys and sorrows among us, both spoken and unspoken, let us share a centering song. We'll do number 391 in the gray hymnal, Voice Still and Small. Since this hymnal was printed, the composer has requested we use the language in storm and rain, instead of in storm and rain, that we sing in dark and rain. That's in dark and rain. Number 391. And on the wings of this music and with the sound of joyful children, let us continue in a mood of meditation or prayer. Each week we observe a period of silence so that we may open our hearts of compassion to those in our community and around the world who know both joy and suffering. I'll lift up a pastoral prayer, and then we'll observe a minute of silence for your own inward reflection. You might want to now take a deep breath, rest your eyes, and make sure you're seated comfortably. Words of Nicoline Guerrier, adapted. Spirit of life and love, you who breathe in and out with us in the darkness, who weep with us when our hearts are breaking, and also share your spreading warmth in the first rays of dawn. Grant us in our world gifts of healing and gifts of hope. May those who struggle see their yearnings come to fruition. May those who suffer through long uncertainty be granted release. For each of us, even in times of darkness, may we know ourselves to be like seeds, still, slumbering, waiting only for the conditions that will allow for all that is alive within us to burst forth and reach toward the exuberance of spring. In our singing, alone and together, may we know that we are one. May we know that we are alive. May we know that we are loved. May we know that we are whole, and may we find our way forward. So may it be. Amen. A time of silence. mean to startle you. Every week, we take up an offering in support of our liberal religious values. Half of the loose currency in the offering plate is donated to a cause with a local presence, which furthers important principles of Unitarian Universalism. Our April Share the Plate recipient is our congregation's meal prep team for Youth Emergency Services, or YES. Each month, church member Kim Callahan and her team prepare a meal in the church kitchen and then deliver that meal to YES, which is a shelter for youth in the Omaha area. As the offering plates are passed in the sanctuary, those online will find a donation link in the chat. I invite you all to give with a generous heart as we have another gift of music from the sanctuary singers. They're going to sing for us Ubi Caritas, an ancient Christian song with this arrangement by Victor C. Johnson. I'm not sure what to believe. Have we reached that promised land yet of endemic? I'm not sure what to do. My head tells me I could enjoy dinner and a movie out with my spouse, which I haven't done in 2 years, but my body still says, that's not safe. I'm not even sure how to feel in this late stage of the pandemic. I often feel hopeful, wary, jubilant, confused, in quick succession, or all at once. I imagine the followers of Jesus experienced a similar bewilderment when their beloved teacher's cruel death was followed, only a few days later, by an empty tomb. After dark hours of tossing and weeping, the women closest to Jesus rose in the dawn light and prepared to anoint his body. But when they arrived, his tomb lay open, the stone rolled away. The body of the dear one disappeared. What did it mean? Not to have to gaze upon Jesus' scarred corpse, not to have to feel the imprint of his wounds in their own empathic flesh, that must have been a relief. Yet not being able to gently touch him, to soothingly smooth on the oils, to have palpable contact, that had to be a loss. The whole situation surely left them with an unfinished feeling. The strange young man loitering in the tomb had told them that Jesus had risen, but only birds soar up to the heavens. Whatever occurred after his death, there was no escaping the brutality that Jesus had endured. After all, the Romans crucified criminals and political enemies, displaying publicly for all to see, in part as a warning to any who might challenge imperial power. Jesus' mother and some of his followers had seen him crucified. Did they hear him utter of those who betrayed and condemned him, "Forgive them, Father, for they know not what they do"? They could not rescue him. Those who cared for Jesus could only witness him spread against the sky, helpless and thirsty, until all the life drained away. I've always turned away from this violent scene. Easter was my least favorite holiday for a long time, largely because the story is often told in a way that presents Jesus' trauma as somehow redemptive. But recently, I have found the Easter story more relatable. For we have witnessed our own 21st century pandemic passion play. Many of us stood by, feeling helpless, as not one, but great numbers of people died of COVID-19. Over 1,100 people in Douglas County have died from COVID so far. Almost 3,500 in Nebraska. Over 987,000 in the United States. That's nearly 1 million people. Over 6.7 million have died worldwide. And it's not over yet. The global death toll is expected by August to reach 7 million. I don't know about you, but for me, it's hard to really take in numbers like these, to feel what that means, 7 million people. There are only so many statistics you can hear, only so many human interest stories you can read before overwhelm and compassion fatigue kick in. When there's not much you can do, it makes sense to conserve your energy and focus on those ways you can sustain your own health and protect those who are right around you. When I have found myself in a place more of anger than of sadness, I've tried to heed Jesus' Good Friday prayer, to forgive those who have forgone safety measures, perhaps misled by false statements, who may not know what they have done. The ripples, of course, go far beyond those directly lost to COVID. Anyone who has lost a loved one during this time to any cause of death may have found their mourning suspended, like the women at the empty tomb. Rather than gathering with loved ones publicly and grieving and remembering their dead together, many mourners missed viewings of the deceased, missed out on comforting hugs and sharing of food and drink. In these last 2 years of keeping one another at arm's length, at shopping cart length, as I will always now have in my head, often with half of our faces covered, not only have the losses been great in scope, they've not been fully expressed. A current of unresolved, pent-up grief runs through our collective lives like an underground stream. And yet, as the children's voices remind us, joy can run right alongside sadness. It certainly did for the women at the tomb, who felt as elated by Jesus' empty chamber as they felt caught off and confused by it. How could this be? David White writes, "Joy, to our consternation, is a measure of our relationship to death and our living with death." We've had to live with a lot of death, separation, and loss these past 2 years. And paradoxically, this can lead to a fuller appreciation of life and acute awareness of the value of cherished relationships. If joy is a deep form of abiding love, White says, it is also the raw engagement with the passing seasonality of existence, the fleeting presence of those we love understood as gift, what is and will never be again, going in and out of our lives. The community that wove together around Jesus was still there after he died. His disciples realized how lucky they were to have known their teacher firsthand, to have witnessed his healing of the sick and his gentle affection for the children, to have heard his parables aloud in his own potent voice, to have experienced, I imagine, what Hindus call darshan, gazing upon a sacred person or divine being, imbibing through their eyes and presence some of the qualities of the illumined one. More unified in consciousness, more aware of the divinity of all, drawn like a moth to the fire of love that blazes in a teacher such as Jesus. Even while grieving their loss of direct access to this person, this experience, Jesus' students surely also recognized what a rarity, what a blessing it was for them to have been a part of his intimate circle, to have known him at all. We often become more aware of our good fortune for knowing a beloved one, more grateful for their influence on our life at the very time that we lose them. For Jesus' close companions, the sorrow of losing him and the joy of having known him in the first place intermingled. The agony of witnessing his torturous death likewise went hand in hand with the joy that the anguished ordeal had ended. Jesus was released from pain once and for all. Hallelujah. Anyone who has watched a loved one suffer a drawn-out death knows what a relief it is when it's over. It's a bit more complicated, I think, for us collectively with the pandemic. At least I'm not sure when to feel relieved, because I'm not sure how I will know, how anyone will know, when the pandemic is really over. Historians will decide that later in hindsight. Meanwhile, we are faced with the same quandary that must have seized those women at the empty tomb, that must have swelled over the disciples when they learned that their teacher was gone. The dilemma that everything is different now, forever different after Jesus' death than before. Irrevocably different. irrevocably different in 2022 than in 2019 for us before this coronavirus. And even as I say that, I realize that April of 2022 is also very different than April of last year, or even January 2022. The risk calculus has changed for many people with vaccines and boosters, with Omicron having touched so many of the population. For some people, it has changed as their own resilience has eroded. Not to mention the public's waning tolerance, perhaps our own waning tolerance for safety mandates. Other needs, social, emotional, mental, spiritual, assert themselves too. So how can we awaken to life and find joy in this new reality? I feel that my relationship to fear is an access which this potential to reconnect with joy turns on. David White observes, "To be joyful is to have walked through the doorway of fear. The dropping away of the anxious, worried self felt like a thankful death itself." I find myself doing this in fits and starts, when to wear a mask and when not, letting go here and there of unceasing worry for my child, whom I can't possibly protect from every COVID exposure. I feel like I'm poised right inside that doorway of fear, one foot back in the room of anxiety, slowly lifting up, the other foot grazing the joy space ahead, just at the heel. I can feel that my amygdala, my lizard brain, is recalibrating its perception of danger as I test out moments of freedom and joy. Yes, I am ready for the anxious self to recede. What does this make possible? According to White, the claiming of our place in the living conversation. I acquired a new pastime recently that has helped me claim my place a bit more, literally in our home, livening it up with houseplants. We've got about 24 now, some in every room that has enough light to sustain something green and growing. My daughter loved going to the greenhouse with me and choosing plants and pots. I've repotted root-bound plants that thrived under the extra attention they got over the past couple of years. I've hung hooks and put together plant stands and misted my fern and put my aloe in its preferred soil. I've read up on cultivation, finding special delight in brooding spider plant babies and philodendron cuttings in water. And I've been particularly taken with a plant called Zebrina. It's a silvery green plant that trails down from pots or baskets. It has a striking purple stripe down the middle of each green leaf and a shiny magenta underside. This eye-catching and fast-growing plant is also known as inch plant or spiderwort. You may know it as wandering Jew, though that name is going out of usage, I understand. Arising in 13th century Europe, the myth of the wandering Jew was a story of someone who taunted Jesus during the crucifixion and was then cursed to wander the earth until the second coming of Christ. This tale has been used to justify anti-Semitic violence, despite the fact that historically, Jews were not responsible for Jesus' crucifixion. It seems especially appropriate at Easter to avoid this name for the plant and favor one of the benign alternatives. Now, if you like the wandering part, which I kind of do, a recent variant on the name of this plant is the wandering dude. A fittingly hippie name for a zigzagging plant with psychedelic colors. All these houseplants do make me feel calm and peaceful in our home. And I'm going out into the world more too. I want to claim my place in the living conversation. What can we expect if we do that? If we participate more fully in life? If we work with the way things are now? In the early years after his death, Jesus' followers could not have anticipated the institutional forms that would be built on his teachings over the centuries to come. Nor would they have guessed the theology that would develop about the meaning of his life, the meaning of his death, Jesus' nature and role in history. It wasn't their job to know all that as they grieved and moved forward. And we can't know either how societal forms will continue to evolve, how culture will shift, irrevocably shaped by these pandemic years. We see hints, for sure. Remote work seems here to stay. Multi-platform church will stick. The labor market has changed. Public education is just beginning to work through the upheavals this time has started or accelerated. It's harder than ever to ignore our interdependence with people around the world, harder than ever to take for granted such a basic act as breathing. But we can only make educated guesses right now about how all that will play out. This, right now, is the Easter moment of our era. As we stand confused before the empty tomb, living in an in-between time, our first task is both simple and difficult: to accept the joy and the heartbreak, to allow ourselves to fully feel it, alone and together, with our family, our friends, our spiritual community. David White, who we heard from already on the joy side of that equation, illuminates the heartbreak a bit too. Heartbreak, he writes, is asking us to be ready to let go of the way we are holding things, and preparation perhaps for the last letting go of all. Heartbreak is asking us to be ready to let go of the way we are holding things. What do we need to let go of? Some of that fear and anxiety, perhaps, as we are able. We can let go of the unconscious assumption that the way we've always done it, in the family, the workplace, at school, at church, is the way that will serve best in the future. In order to spread our hands wide to receive the gifts that await, we may need to loosen our grip on ideas, practices, and forms that shaped our lives in the time before. Back to my purple inch plant. There is another reason that the wandering dude was on my mind as Easter approached. It turns out that inch plants eventually get too leggy and scraggly to maintain. Rather than repot it over and over, at some point, the responsible plant lover is advised to use some trimmings rooted in water to start a new pot, letting go of the rest of the old plant. I'm not sure how long my wandering dude plant has been around, how many repottings it has already seen. I actually received some starts of it from a church member as a housewarming gift when I arrived in Omaha. So this plant may have had many lives before it met me. It's grown so bountifully in the last couple of years that I've had it. I've made numerous starts again myself. I just gave some to my mother last week. So I think the wandering dude provides an apt image for our time. We're not starting from scratch. We start from what others have shared with us, including those who were here before us. But the container may need to change. The same plant may need a larger pot and fresh soil to continue thriving. And we may need to let go of some of the older stems and leaves that have lost their luster in order to maintain a shiny, healthy plant. Then we can help it flourish 1 new inch at a time. Accepting our feelings of grief, of joy, opening our hearts and minds to new ways of doing things, new possibilities for sustaining ourselves in community. These are the prerequisites for action. What do we do when we've met those? In describing heartbreak, David Wyatt observes that it can ground us truly in whatever grief we are experiencing, set us to planting a seed with what we have left, or appreciate what we have built even as we stand in its ruins. These are the gifts of heartbreak. I'm especially drawn to this invitation that heartbreak can set us to planting a seed with what we have left. The Easter story reminds me that good can come from senseless death. Not that death is foreordained, or that tragedy is somehow for the greater good. I personally don't go in for that sort of theology, but that crisis can be the ground in which seeds are planted. I can choose what to do next and help something good grow from the ashes. A crisis can quicken my commitment to that which I hold most dear. For Jesus' followers, steeped in both grief and joy on Easter Day, the crisis kindled their commitment to Jesus' essential teachings: to love one another, to go forth with a generosity of spirit that leaves no one out of the circle of community, to hold fast to this core of goodness no matter what violence or hardship they may face, or putting contemporary Unitarian Universalist language, to confront powers and structures of evil with justice, compassion, and the transforming power of love. The container may need to change, but for me, these are the seeds I will continue to plant, now in the freshly turned soil of our turbulent times. The seeds of justice, the seeds of compassion, the seeds of love. With these seeds, we can bring more joy into the world and into our own lives. May it be so. Amen. I invite you to join in singing our closing hymn. It's in the Teal hymnal, number 1017, Building a New Way. We'll sing verses 1 through 3, and you can stand, sway, or do whatever feels good in your body. In our Easter era, let us accept the joy and the grief that we feel as it comes. Let us ready to let go of the way we are holding things. And let us plant the transforming seeds of love to help build a new way. May it be so. Amen.